Welcome back to my inner sanctum. I'm your hostess, Countess Elizabeth, mistress of the macabre. I love aviation and learning aviation history. Today, we will look at an airplane mystery that still captivates people as one of the strangest mass disappearances in aviation history, and that is the mysterious disappearance of Flight 19. So let's comb the ocean to find any trace of the missing planes and explore our grotesque curiosity. It all began as nothing more than a routine training flight. At 2:15 p.m. on December 5th, 1945, 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers took off from the Naval Air Station in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The planes, collectively known as Flight 19, were scheduled to tackle a 3-hour exercise known as the Navigation Problem Number 1. Their triangular flight path called for them to head east from Florida coast and conduct bombing runs at a place called Hen and Chicken Shoals. They would then turn north and proceed over Grand Bahama Island before changing course a third time and flying southwest back to base. Save for one plane that only carried 2 men, each of the Avengers was crewed by 3 Navy men or Marines, most of whom had logged around 300 hours in the air. The flight leader was Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor, an experienced pilot and veteran of several combat missions in World War II Pacific Theater. At first, Flight 19's hop proceeded just as smoothly as the Provisions 18 that day. Taylor and his pilots buzzed over the Hen and Chicken Shoals just around 2:30, dropped their practice bombs without incident. But shortly after the patrol turned north for the second leg of its journey, something very strange happened. For reasons that are still unclear, Taylor became convinced that his Avenger compass was malfunctioning and that his planes had been flying in the wrong direction. The troubles only mounted after a front blew in and brought rain, gusting winds, and heavy cloud cover. Flight 19 became hopelessly disoriented. "I don't know where we are," one of the pilots said over the radio. "We must have got lost after the last turn." Lieutenant Robert F. Cox, another Navy flight instructor who was flying near the Florida coast, was the first to overhear the patrol radio communications. He immediately informed the Air Force of the situation and then contacted the Avengers to ask if they needed assistance. "Both of my compasses are out and I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida," Taylor said, his voice sounding anxious. "I'm overland, but it's broken. I'm sure it's the Keys. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down." Taylor's claim didn't seem to make any sense. He'd made his scheduled pass over Hen and Chicken Shoals in the Bahamas less than an hour earlier, but now he believed his planes had somehow drifted hundreds of miles off course and ended in the Florida Keys. The 27-year-old had just transferred from Fort Lauderdale to Miami, and may have since speculated that he may have confused some of the islands in the Bahamas for the Keys. Under normal circumstances, pilots lost in the Atlantic were supposed to point their planes toward the setting sun and fly west towards the mainland. But Taylor had become convinced that he might be over the Gulf of Mexico. Hoping to locate the Florida peninsula, he made a fateful decision to steer Flight 19 northeast, a course that would take them even further out to sea. Some of the pilots seemed to have recognized that he was making a mistake. "Damn it," one man griped over the radio. "If we had just fly west, we would get home." Taylor was eventually persuaded to turn around and head west, but shortly after 6 p.m., he seems to have canceled this order and once again changed direction. "We didn't go far enough east," he said, still worried that he might be in the Gulf. "We may as well just turn around and go east again." His pilots probably argued against the decision. Some investigators even believe that one plane broke off and flew in a different direction, but most followed their commander's lead. Flight 19's radio transmissions soon became increasingly faint as it meandered out to sea. When fuel began to run low, Taylor was heard prepping his men for potential crash landing in the ocean. "All planes, close up tight," he said. "We'll have to ditch unless landfall. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we'll all go down together." A few minutes later, the Avengers' last radio communication was replaced by an eerie buzz of static. The Navy immediately scrambled search planes to hunt for the missing patrol. Around 7:30, a pair of PBM Mariner flight boats took off from an air station north of Fort Lauderdale. Just 20 minutes later, however, one of them seemed to follow the Flight 19's lead by suddenly vanishing off radar. The remains of the Mariner and its 13 crewmen were never recovered, but it's commonly believed that the seaplane exploded shortly after takeoff, which to me is just crazy. Flying boats apparently were notoriously accident-prone and were even nicknamed flying flying gas tanks for their propensity for catching fire. Suspicions that the seaplane may have gone up in flames were all but confirmed by a passing merchant ship, which spotted a fireball and found evidence of an oil slick in the ocean. So there's evidence that this plane did explode. At first light the next day, the Navy dispatched more than 300 boats and aircraft to look for Flight 19 and the missing mariner. The search party spent 5 days combing through more than 300,000 miles of territory to no avail. They just vanished. Navy Lieutenant David White later recalled, "We had hundreds of planes out looking, and we searched over land and water for days, and nobody ever found the bodies or any debris." A Navy Board of Investigation was also left scratching at its head. While it argued that Taylor might have been confused for the Bahamas for the Florida Keys after his compasses malfunctioned, it could find no clear explanation as to why Flight 19 had become so disoriented. Its members eventually attributed the loss to causes or reasons unknown. The strange events of December 5th, 1945 have become fodder for all kinds of wild theories and speculations. In the 1960s and 70s, pulp magazine writers such as Vincent Gladys and Charles Berlitz helped popularize the idea that Flight 19 had been gobbled up by the Bermuda Triangle, a section of the Atlantic supposedly known for its high volume of freak disappearances and mechanical failures. Other books and fictional portrayals have suggested the magnetic anomalies, parallel dimensions, and even alien abductions might have played a role in the tragedy. In 1977, the film Close Encounters of the Third Kind famously depicted Flight 19 as having been whisked away by flying saucers and later deposited in the deserts in Mexico. Even if the Lost Patrol didn't fall victim to supernatural, there's no denying its disappearance was accompanied by many oddities and unanswered questions. Perhaps as strange as of all concerns Lieutenant Taylor. Witnesses claimed that he arrived to Flight 19's pre-exercise briefing several minutes late and requested to be excused from leading the mission. "I just don't want to take this one out," he supposedly said. Just as to why Taylor tried to get out of flying remains a mystery, but it led many to suggest that he may have not been fit for duty. Also unexplained as to why none of the members of Flight 19 made the use of the rescue radio frequency or their plane's ZBX receivers, which could have helped lead them towards the Navy radio towers on land. The pilots were told to switch the devices on, but either they didn't hear the message or didn't acknowledge it. What really happened to Flight 19? The most likely scenario is that the plane eventually ran out of gas and ditched in the ocean somewhere off the coast of Florida, leaving any survivors at the mercy of rough seas and deep water. In 1991, a group of treasure hunters seemed to have finally solved the puzzle when they stumbled upon the watery graves of 5 World War II-era Avengers near Fort Lauderdale. Unfortunately, it was later found that the hulks belonged to a different group of Navy planes, whose serial numbers didn't match those of the fabled Lost Patrol. Many believe the wrecks of the Flight 19 and its doomed rescue plane may still lurk somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle, but while the search continues to this day, no definitive signs of 6 aircraft or their 27 crewmen have ever been found. Well, that was truly a grotesque tale, one where we still don't know what happened to the fabled lost Flight 19 airplanes. I think they ran out of gas as they were flying and following the command of someone who was disoriented and not fit for duty. Either way, may their souls rest in peace. Thank you for watching the video. Subscribe, like, and share if you would also like to keep exploring our grotesque curiosity. We will meet again in the darkness of the night.